Hello everyone, another day, another Dodge. And this is one of those cars that I simply didn't know existed. It belongs to our host Trey's brother, or to put it another way, the husband of the lady that owns the last Dodge that I drove. Now, when I first saw this, I thought it was a Chrysler 300C, but the Wagon version. Now, it's not actually a 300C, but it is a very close relative. This is a Dodge Magnum. It is actually basically a 300C wagon. It's a platform that they shared with the 300C and also the same generation of Charger that I drove. And if you watched that review, you'll know that I wasn't too keen on that car. If you haven't watched that review, you best do that now. I'll stick the link up here or down there, or I'll put it somewhere. However, this car does get off to a good start, not least because I need to say something nice if I want to get my passport back off Kelly. This car both looks and sounds the bollocks. This is a mean as shit car. It really, really is. This is very much your archetypal axe murderer's car. I mean, it's all black and low slung and evil. And I gotta confess, I'm a bit of a sucker for a cool, fast estate, and this is very much that. Now, crucially, this is not just a Magnum, this is the Magnum SRT8. And that is essentially Dodge's AMG. This is their performance in-house tuning division. You may have heard of the Viper being referred to as the SRT10. I believe it stands for Street Racing Technology or something like that. Now, I don't really know an awful lot of what they've done to this to make it an SRT. The big headline change, of course, is an even bigger engine than the last thing that I drove. Rather than that piddly little 5.7 litre, this has got a 6.1 litre Hemi engine, pushing out 425 horsepower and just shy of 400 pound-foot of torque. And that's mated to more than likely the same gearbox that was in the Charger, which is a Mercedes 5-speed automatic. It's not the fastest of gearboxes, and in this car, the SRT, it was the only choice. Other engine options in the Magnum include the exact same 5.7, pushing out about 340 horsepower. There was also a 3.5 V6. There was also an incredibly asthmatic 2.7 litre V6, pushing out a measly 190 horsepower. I mean, that's barely enough to get this 2-ton lump going. However, the 425 horses are certainly adequate. And this car isn't massively modified, but the one change that I wish had been made to the Charger has been made to this, and that's in the exhaust. This has a Flowmaster rear section, or something to that effect, and streamlined catalytic converters, which means it sounds like this. It's a good sound. There are some slightly odd sounds coming from this car, but I think a lot of that's due to the body reverberating a little bit thanks to this very fruity exhaust. I've been outside this car hearing it go past, and it sounds a touch apocalyptic. It's very tasty. It's not the quickest thing, as you would expect from something with about 400 horsepower and 2 tons to move along, but it does handle quite a bit better than the Charger did. It turns in with a little bit more authority than the other car, although it does still have fairly light steering. Gearing is fairly long, cruising along here at what will be the national speed limit back home in third, with plenty of revs to spare. That exhaust is burbling along nicely, and although the interior in here is almost certainly made from the same sort of recycled, plastic cup kind of quality material that the Charger had, Because this is a darker shade, you do get away with it a lot more. You simply don't pay any attention to the rest of it. You still have this feeling of being in a very enclosed space. It's not a car for claustrophobic types at all. And it will actually go around a bend. The steering could certainly use a bit more feel, and I could say the same for most of the controls in here. The throttle and brake pedal are also a little bit light. There's a bit of Laurie there. That's an IROC, wasn't it?
Yeah, 2 Camaros.
Hey. My friend Laurie is currently on the hunt for an old Corvette, so if you happen to be in the States and you've got an old C4, do let me know. By the time you see this, we'll have left, but we will be returning. Well, Laurie certainly will. I mean, I think he's trying to find some nice young man to marry out here. He's just trying to find someone with their own collection of tractors. The car actually rides pretty well, honestly. Its biggest crime for usability is the fact that that exhaust noise is quite intrusive even when you don't want it to be. It is very drony, and if this were my car, I think I would do something to it to just fix that. Now, being an estate car, it is actually somewhat practical. It does have a reasonable load space at the back, although it's not massive. It is probably just as generous as you'd get with a lot of kind of crossover SUVs. So you've really got to work the engine to get it to do its best. So I'm going to drop down a gear in a moment and let it rev out. It will only go to about 6,000 or so. Woo. And it is geared long. My, it does sound good. It's brisk. It's not particularly fast, but it is brisk. Now, I must confess, it may be possible that I judged the Charger the other day a little too harshly. You see, the thing is, as Europeans, when we see a car, we know that it's got a great big 5.7 litre V8 in it, we think it's going to be something special. And the fact of the matter is that over here, that very often isn't the case. The Charger is a relatively ordinary car over here. It's not necessarily that much more special than any kind of Ford saloon is back home. It's just that they have a thing for very large capacity engines here. This car being the SRT8, you would of course expect to have slightly more sporting credentials, and whilst it is certainly a far better handling car than the Charger or the Charger RT, it's well, it's still no sports car. But that's fine. It's got just enough performance to kind of justify the noise that it's making, and it is at least a nice, big, comfy car for you to cruise about in. The Magnum is a bit of an oddity in Dodge history. They've made several Magnums, but this one really stands out because it's nothing like the older Magnums from, say, the 70s. The Magnum only existed for about 4 model years here. They officially went into production in about 2005, and by 2008 they were done because Dodge was trying to streamline, and this simply wasn't selling well enough. They were selling about 40,000 units a year at their peak, but for a large car maker over here, that simply isn't enough to justify keeping the line running. And that's a shame, because this is a pretty cool car, and it's a really nice antidote to all of the pickups and things that you get over here. It's also very American, and if I'm being shockingly honest, the good thing about it being kind of cheaply made is that it was made cheap. You can now pick up one of these for, well, about $10,000 to $15,000, depending on the condition, mileage, etc, etc, etc. This car's owner paid about $12,000 for his, and you know what? I guess it's almost a bit of a bargain. So there we have it, the Dodge Magnum SRT8. Not the disappointment that the Charger was. This instead is an American surprise. And if I'm lucky, this is still not my last Dodge of the trip. Thank you all for watching. Hope to see you on the next one. Please like, comment below, and hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. We'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye. Freedom!